we've talked about this several times, and our audience knows that there's a pathway to violence. It usually starts out with a grievance, some hate ideology. And Jim talked about the radicalization of these two individuals. I mean, one suspect was 17 years old, the other was 18 years old. So, for all intents and purposes, they were teenagers. One was at a local high school. He was set to graduate within the next month. But the thing is, they found a lot of things. And I think what they're going to find as we move forward here, when they go in to some of the things, posters in his room, they go on social media, they're going to find a lot of hate. And I'd like to know where this comes from, because it was directed at the Muslim community. But yet, when they fled the scene after they did some shooting in the front of this building, they opened fire on a landscaper. Now, I'm not saying all landscapers are not as maybe, or he was Islamic, but I'll bet my bottom dollar, not knowing anything about it, that he didn't look like them. I'll bet you he was somebody that was different than them. And that's that ideology that they have. And I really have a concern. Was the mother contacting the police because she was worried about her son, or worried what would happen if her son did something? And I'm not saying that the mother had looking at herself, but geez, if you see these things and your son needs help, you need to get that. And you sit here, could this realistically have been prevented? Well, the police would have needed to know a lot sooner. My son's suicidal and he left with some weapons and he's dressed in camouflage. She never said, I think he's going to go shoot up a building. She may have known that, may not. When you look at some of these things and you look at, and I know that the chief police said they're going to take a look at this as a hate crime until they can prove it, unless they can prove it otherwise. And I really believe that when this comes all down, it's going to be a hate crime. But I think the online radicalization among teenagers is a real problem in this country. And you're starting to see a rise in attacks that's targeting religious institutions, not just in Islam, but Jewish, Black churches, all these different things. There was just a huge
Catholic churches.
Catholic churches. There was
Catholic
just a
schools.
huge fire, and they don't know what happened. A huge fire in the state of Delaware of one of the oldest churches in the state. It was an African-American church. It just amazes me what happened to that. And I'm waiting to hear the outcome of that. But my problem is we need to address these extremists and the extremist content that's starting to influence our younger offenders. These social media ecosystems are really contributing to a lot of this violence. And I think that's a real, real problem.